Welcome into the 49er Access podcast. My name is Sterling Bennett. Got my fresh cut in order to celebrate Brocktober as the San Francisco 49ers face off against the Cleveland Browns this Sunday, 10 a.m. on the Midwest, East Coast, whatever you want to call yourself, Cleveland. But Brocktober and Brocktober Fest rolls on into week number 6 of the NFL season. Today, we're going to preview again San Francisco 49ers against the Cleveland Browns. The Niners come in 5-0, coming off a 3-game homestand in which they won every single game. They are one of 2 undefeated teams still remaining in the NFL. This is their first Midwest East Coast road trip, whatever you want to call it, 10 a.m. start since week number 1 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And one of the bigger questions coming into this week is, off a 3-game homestand, back on the East/10 a.m. schedule, is there going to be a slow start? We'll dive into that. The Browns come in 2-2 coming off the bye week. You'd think they'd be a little healthier. You'd think they have the extra week to prep for this game, but in fact, they're extremely banged up. We'll dive into all of that in just a few seconds. Want to kindly ask you to like, share, subscribe, and leave a review on the podcast. Leaving a like is an easy, free way to help the show. Leaving a review is an easy, free way to help the podcast on the audio platform. So go ahead and do that. You can always take back your like at the end of the video if you don't actually like the content, but one like right now certainly helps push the video out there to other people. And let's dive into this game. Sunday, 10 a.m., Cleveland, Ohio, Niners against the Browns. I believe the last time these teams have actually played against each other, if I'm correct here, was 2019 when Nick Bosa and Baker Mayfield faced off for the first time at Levi Stadium. It was supposed to be the Browns coming out party. Prime time, they had Jarvis Landry, they had Myles Garrett, they had OBJ, Baker Mayfield. That was supposed to be the coming out party. San Francisco said, no, this is our coming out party, which of course led to them having a 13-3 record that year and the number 1 seed in the NFC. This Sunday, kind of a different story because, like I said earlier, San Francisco being 5-0, Cleveland being 2-2, and San Francisco, by everyone's measure, has been the best team in football through 5 weeks. It's them and Philadelphia atop the NFL, atop the NFC, and it's kind of a one-man race, I could say, to the NFC crown, albeit same record. The way the San Francisco 49ers have won football games has just been different, averaging over 32 points a game coming into this week against the Cleveland Browns in week number 6. The Browns, on the other end, have not been so great offensively. They currently rank 26th in the league per DVOA. They're the 29th best running team and the 31st ranked passing team. They also rank 29th in turnover differential at -7. This team is one of the least efficient teams in football when it comes to offensive play. They can't pass well. They can't run well. Now, of course, they did lose Nick Chubb early this year to just one of a few catastrophic injuries we've seen so far early in the season. It stinks. It sucks. I hope he gets healthy. I hope he actually gets back to where he was, because when you don't have one of the 2 best running backs in football, it's going to hurt your run game and actually pass game production. So Nick Chubb not going to play in this game. It looks like at this moment, Deshaun Watson has not practiced all week long. And it seems like he's not going to play on Sunday either. So no starting running back. Seems to be no starting quarterback. And I could argue that while, yes, not having Nick Chubb and Deshaun Watson are major absences, the Cleveland Browns may also not have Joel Bitonio, who is one of the best left guards in football. Not having him certainly changes their offense. So 3 offensive starters have yet to practice this week. And even David Njoku, who had just a catastrophic burn to his face, played 2 weeks ago. He didn't practice today. So the Browns are extremely banged up. Their offense may have 4 starters off the field when it comes to 10 a.m. on Sunday morning. And if Deshaun Watson can't go on Sunday, it's going to be P.J. Walker not DTR, who played 2 weeks ago. PJ Walker going to get the start over him, and this does change their entire offense. Now, you do want to give PJ Walker some credit. Had a handful of nice games with the Carolina Panthers last year when they were kind of fighting through the Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield absences, and PJ Walker did step up, and very small sample sizes, and he isn't really, he's not a starting caliber quarterback, but you do have to respect PJ Walker. Again, he's not going to be an elite quarterback. He's not going to be, we're not going to see a Brock Purdy-esque performance from PJ Walker this week against this defense and this Niners team, but you do want to give him some credit. While he hasn't played this year, the Browns' offense looks extremely different with Watson and without Deshaun Watson. With Watson, only 3 games this year, the offense is averaging 24 points a game, almost 366 yards per game, over 150 rushing yards per game, and they've totaled 7 turnovers in those 3 games. With 1 game having no Deshaun Watson, they've only averaged 3 points, 166 total yards per game, 93 rushing yards per game, and they've given the ball away 3 times. So while it wasn't PJ Walker 2 weeks ago, not having Deshaun Watson certainly hurts the Browns Sunday against one of the best defenses in football that has a knack for getting the ball back, and just forced 4 turnovers against the Cowboys last week in prime time. But it's not just quarterback play. Jerome Ford, he's going to be the running back on Sunday for the Cleveland Browns. He himself is also coming off of being on crutches for nearly a whole week. He suffered a knee injury 2 weeks ago. He's likely to play in this game, and I like Jerome Ford, but he's no Nick Chubb. He was supposed to be the pass-catching back for this offense, and with no Nick Chubb in the fray, Jerome Ford has to carry the majority of the load in the backfield, being the running back. And so far this year, he has 3.7 yards an attempt. That's under 4. It's not great for a starting caliber running back. And since Nick Chubb was hurt against the Pittsburgh Steelers in week number 2 of the season, Jerome Ford went from 106 yards on the ground to 10 carries for 18 yards the next week, and then 2 weeks ago, 9 carries for 26 yards. This offense is struggling. This offense is injured, and even when their star players are healthy or their starters are healthy, it really has not been quite the output you want from your starting caliber players or players that are replacing your stars like Nick Chubb in the form of Jerome Ford. I will say this, he also, I don't want to say is a massive receiving threat, but he can be that. He's averaging 4 catches a game this year for 25 yards. That doesn't seem incredible, and I'm sure you're laughing right now saying, really, Sterling? Like, that's a receiving threat? But he does have 2 receiving touchdowns this year. So Jerome Ford isn't the best running back. He certainly isn't going to be Nick Chubb light. I can argue he's a bottom 15, 16 running back so far this year, and I can argue that on half the teams in the league, he probably wouldn't start. But as of now, he's the best Cleveland has to offer, and you have to give him some credit. You have to give them, he can hurt you when it comes to at least scoring touchdowns at the goal line in the red zone. But this offense at the moment is struggling even getting there. Again, with no Deshaun Watson, only averaging 3 points a game. And the Amari Cooper factor. I don't want to say this lightly. Amari Cooper is one of the best receivers in football. The fact that Cleveland got him for like a 5th-round pick is one of the biggest trade steals in a long time. Just incredible as to the production he puts out on the field for them. He is a true number 1 receiver, in my opinion. And if he isn't number 1 to you, he certainly is the best number 2 receiver in football. Unless you want to count Debo in that category, which I wouldn't. But Amari Cooper is extremely good. The difference is with Deshaun Watson, he's an entirely different receiver because they just can't get him the football. This offense, again, it can't run very well without Watson on the field. And they cannot pass the ball very well. Now, let's give the Browns even more credit here. You have to assume PJ Walker is going to play better than DTR 2 weeks ago. He's been in the league for a handful of seasons, been a backup for a handful of seasons. He at least knows how to, I don't want to say win football games, but he at least knows how to play in the NFL. He isn't a green behind the ears rookie making his first start. PJ Walker is going to be more competent, more confident, and should play better than a rookie in his first NFL career start, like DTR did 2 weeks ago. But if the output Amari Cooper had, even if it's doubled with PJ Walker than what he had 2 weeks ago with DTR as a quarterback, he's only going to have 2 catches for 32 yards. He had 1 catch for 16 yards in week 4 without Deshaun Watson playing quarterback. When you don't have Deshaun Watson, who even by his own standards, which I get as a person aren't very high, but but as a player, he wasn't playing amazing football this year, but he was playing Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins-esque style of football, which is who he is now as a quarterback. And when you replace that with a rookie or now PJ Walker, you're going to see an extreme decline in play on the field. And I'm not expecting this Browns offense to be able to do much at quarterback or running back against this Niners defense. This Niners defense is just too freaking good. And there are concerns that, again, West Coast to East Coast, first time in 4 weeks, really. They played the Rams in week number 2, so this is their first East Coast trip or Midwest trip, Northwest trip, whatever you want to call it, in 4 weeks. And there is maybe a concern of it's a 10 o'clock game, an emotional primetime game against the Cowboys last week, but it's not as if this team isn't rested. Elijah Mitchell's healthy again. Aaron Banks did practice today. This team is completely healthy with no injuries, knock on wood, and this Niners team is rolling. It's not as if they're coming in off a hard-fought victory over the Cowboys. It took them 4 quarters to get there. San Francisco had that game wrapped up in the third quarter when it was 20-10. It wasn't as if it was a 31-28 game or 31-30, and it was a game-winning field goal from losing. This was a shellacking by the San Francisco 49ers, and it's not as if, again, they're coming in, broken and bruised and bleeding. This team is healthy, they're bandaged up, and they're ready to go for Sunday's game against the Cleveland Browns. But going back to Amari Cooper, I just don't know how much of a factor he's going to be in this game because we don't know what the output or we have no idea how well this offense is going to play without Watson. It's not been pretty. And again, when you don't have Watson and Chubb, and to my next point, when you don't have your starting left guard, Joel Bitonio, it's going to increase the odds the offense continues to struggle. He is one of the best left guards in football. He's an excellent all-around blocker, passing game, running game. Chris Kosaric, Steve Wilks love to run stunts. He is one of the best stunt pick-uppers when it comes to playing left guard in football. He's great at working out of screens and opening up space for running backs out of the backfield. And again, you lose your starting quarterback, your starting running back, and your starting left guard. You're facing Javon Hargrave and Eric Armstead, this Niners secondary, Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, and Nick Bosa. It's going to be a tough day for the Cleveland Browns offense. And you would like to think that facing this defense that has, guys who like to hunt like Warner and Greenlaw and has great tackling secondary pieces with a ferocious, aggressive defensive line, a quick game can mitigate a lot of what San Francisco likes to do in getting pressure on the quarterback. And for PJ Walker, that should be the game plan. But when you don't have your best left guard to pull out for running plays and get you out on screens, it's going to limit what you can do offensively. And, when Kevin Stefanski tries to help PJ Walker, you're not going to have one of your bigger aides when it comes to band-aiding not having Deshaun Watson on the field on Sunday. But if the Browns tend to still lean that way with the quick game and the screen game, San Francisco still has Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, 2 of the best linebackers at cleaning up everything underneath. And they have cornerbacks, Lenore and Mooney Ward, who are some of the best tackling cornerbacks, in football. Both those players have missed 1 tackle combined all year long. So if the game plan for Cleveland is to short game, quick pass, there's not going to be much there for the Browns. And the Browns do like to take shots downfield. They're a little more aggressive, but again, Walker will do that more than DTR did 2 weeks ago. But again, when you can't run, this offensive line is banged up. I don't see them having a ton of time to take those shots downfield. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Steve Wilks bring some safety blitzes in this game, or rush 5 or 6 to kind of see and test Walker early, see what he's made of. And don't forget, Steve Wilks was PJ Walker's coach last year in Carolina. He knows how he plays. He at least schemed against him during practice and whatnot, or at least, practice against him. This feels like a game where San Francisco, even if they start out slow, the Browns are too banged up to hang with them for 4 quarters. Even if this game is 3-10 or 3-13 at halftime, I would expect the lead to increase to 10 to 20 when it's all said and done and San Francisco put up 30 points again. But it's also a game where I would not be surprised if Cleveland only scores 10 points. This offense does not have firepower. Again, I mentioned 30 times already, being injured, being hurt doesn't help this Browns offense. There isn't much creativity when it comes to the offensive side of things. I like Kevin Stefanski. It's a very Shanahan style scheme, but I'm just not sure as to what his game plan is going to be, because quick game, not going to work. Deep shots, not going to have time for. And when you can't run the football effectively, you can't really utilize play action. And this defense is humming. They're the number 1 scoring defense in football so far this year after 5 weeks. It's not looking like a pretty game for the Browns. The only hope for them would have to be their defense playing one hell of a game and just being shut out all night long. And it could certainly happen. We'll dive into how good this Browns defense is in a second, but I want to continue with the Cleveland Browns offensive line struggles. They are likely going to have to play a backup left guard on Sunday, but also they're going to have a rookie right tackle, DeJuan Jones. And I like DeJuan Jones. Shouldn't have fallen that far in the draft to Cleveland. He has played well so far this year, but the odds of Nick Bosa not getting a sack against a rookie right tackle is pretty low. I would expect Nick Bosa to have 1-2 sacks in this game. And again, for the entire offensive line for Cleveland, when you're having to face Hargrave and Armstead and Kinlaw, and even Kevin Gibbons, who had a great game against the Cowboys last week, those 4 guys continually push the pocket, can free up space, get pressure, and again, forcing a Walker to the edge where Nick Bosa is one of the best edge setters in football. It's going to be a tough outing for this Browns offense in almost every facet of the game. And I haven't even mentioned Randy Gregory, their new edge rusher. He might get his first action on Sunday. This Niners defense is really, weirdly enough, improving and going to get better when Sunday comes around. Now, we're not sure how much Gregory's going to play, but even if it's 10, 15 snaps, getting him on the field, getting him his first action with Steve Wilks as his defensive coordinator in this defense will certainly help him later on in the season. And look, Nick Bosa had 7 pressures and really 1 sack, but only got credit for a half of one last week. This defense is coming off their best performance all year long. 4 takeaways, 3 picks, 1 fumble. I believe they had four sacks against the Cowboys last week, and that was supposed to be the biggest test they faced all year long when it came to the offense. I get it, it's the Cowboys, but the Niners defense is playing their best football right now, and there's still room to improve. And against the banged up Cleveland Browns team that you really don't know what they're going to do because they have so many injuries, and even the injuries they have, they may not have the actual answers for when it comes to band-aiding and filling those holes. This Niners defense, Hufanga being one of the best safeties in football, and this secondary being awesome so far, it's going to be a long day for the Browns offense. But going back to the Browns offensive line, San Francisco has always prided themselves of winning in the trenches, and the Browns offensive line on paper, even without Batonio, is still a good unit, right? They have a strong left tackle in Willis. They have a really strong right side of the offensive line, and you lose Batonio, and really this season, even with Batonio, they've given up a sack on nearly 10% of their dropbacks. That's fifth worst in football. They also have a 37.2% pressure rating, which is sixth worst in the league. Um, on paper, a lot of good names. On the field, execution wise, it's not been really a good performance so far from their starting five. And again, you're taking out a starter and you're telling Nick Bosa, go up against a rookie on Sunday. Um, doesn't feel like it favors the Browns really at all. And it doesn't help that when you have Deshaun Watson and 2 weeks ago, DTR, the Browns quarterbacks are throwing the football, are taking over 3 seconds to get rid of the ball, which if the game plan is a quick passing game to mitigate a strong pass rush, the quarterbacks this year for Cleveland have yet to do so, getting rid of the ball at the second slowest rate in the league. So you mix bad offensive line play, giving up sack nearly 10% of the dropbacks, mix that in with a quarterback room that is extremely slow at actually getting rid of the football. That is it's a nightmare scenario for the Cleveland Browns. And if you're the Niners, you are California dreaming of playing this Sunday, because this could be a game where they have 2 or 3, 4, 5 sacks against this Browns offensive line. And even if they want to use the quick passing game and try to again limit or try to avoid Nick Bosa and Drake Jackson and company, it's not as if San Francisco doesn't have the personnel behind them to limit what the Browns want to do offensively. This is a game where you circled it early in the year and said, okay, go into Cleveland after a Sunday night game and Deshaun Watson, Nick Chubb, this could be a tough one. At least offensively for the Browns and defensively for San Francisco, this should be a tough game. This should be Cleveland's toughest game when it comes to trying to score points offensively. And for the Niners defense, this might be one of their easiest games so far when it comes to stopping the opposing offense. I would assume it's similar to the Cardinals game where, okay, they have one drive or so where you go, well, that's not great. But other than that, this should be a shutdown, lock them up, throw away the key game for the San Francisco defense. The Browns do have some weaponry, though. I don't want to ignore the fact that they do have some players. Donovan Peoples-Jones and Elijah Moore are going to be their slot and number 2 receivers. These are solid NFL caliber players, which even if PJ Walker, who isn't a starting caliber quarterback, can actually feed Amari Cooper, Peoples-Jones, and more and get it into their hands, it's going to make his job a lot easier. I just question as to how is he going to be able to do that. Again, these Niners defense is so good. They are one of the best tackling teams in football, and they have guys who want to run around and just knock you down, hit you over, and if your Dre Greenlaw wants to punch you 5 times and tackle you after the play. So I do want to give him credit, but even then, going further with it, their starting tight end, David Njoku, who's having a pretty good season, he didn't practice today. He does and is the 9th ranked player in yards after contact at 2.88, basically 3 yards after the catch. But again, if he doesn't practice, it's going to be hard to play. And so really, when you look at it and you say no Watson, or it seems like no Watson, certainly no Nick Chubb, no Joe Batonio, and no starting tight end, San Francisco's defense is not going to have their hands full with this Browns offense whatsoever. There's always a threat of coming out slow, the Browns offense surprising you, getting a cheap early touchdown and put you on your heels. The difference is that that's probably not going to happen. And even if it does happen, the odds of San Francisco putting up points in this game are pretty high, in my opinion. Now, the Browns defense is extremely good, and we'll get to them here in a second. But again, even if you told me that PJ Walker plays well and Amari Cooper has a fairly nice game and they can incorporate Donovan Peoples-Jones and Elijah Moore. I'm sitting here looking at Mooney Ward, Demo Lenore, and Isaiah Oliver, and I'm seeing that Mooney Ward has been targeted 28 times, allowed 0 touchdowns, has 5 pass blocks and 1 pick, only missed 1 tackle. Lenore, who was a player that the Cowboys thought they could target over and over again, he's been targeted 36 times this year, given up 0 touchdowns, has 2 pass blocks, 1 pick, no missed tackles, and coming off his best game of the season with an 85.6 coverage grade against CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, and company. That was his biggest test of the season, and Lenore passed with flying colors. And even someone where Niner fans have pointed to him and say, he's not great, he's not good, that being Isaiah Oliver, I know against the Cowboys, gave up the only touchdown of the game, but through 5 weeks against the Steelers, the Rams, the Giants, the Cardinals, and the Cowboys, he is one of the best cornerbacks when it comes to limiting separation in routes. He's on the higher half of football, not perfect, not great, but good. And so there's not going to be much room for error for the Cleveland Browns offense in this game. They are going to basically have to play perfect to beat San Francisco. And even if this game for the Niners offense is tougher because it should be, playing the Cleveland Browns defense in this game, I would assume the Niners defense will likely have the favor when it comes to stopping, limiting, and kind of just holding down the Browns offense. It's going to be a tough game for Cleveland to even move the football. This is a game where I can see just a punt fest from their offense, and a player like PJ Walker, who I do like, he's going to take chances. You have to, in that time, if you're San Francisco, you have to make the most of him taking a risk. This team has one of the best turnover differentials in football, if not the best this year. So this could be a game where they have 2 turnovers or two takeaways, excuse me. And it really is a punt fest for the Browns offense, which brings us to the Niners offense, because on paper, again, looking at the injury history or the injuries the Browns have suffered through 5 weeks and who may or may not play for their offense, we're all leaning San Francisco. Everything I've said has basically been saying the Niners are going to win this game. But when you look at the Niners this year on offense and who their head coach is, who their offensive coordinator is, and you see who the Cleveland Browns have on defense, Myles Garrett, Za'Darius Smith, that secondary, but more importantly, you see who's leading that defense in Jim Schwartz. Now, us here in San Francisco know Jim Schwartz as the coach in Detroit when Jim Harbaugh shook his hand and kind of pushed him on the back, and then he ran after Harbaugh in the tunnel. They had a big spat after the game, and that's the Jim Schwartz that I know very well in San Francisco. But Jim Schwartz has made himself and really has always been one of the better defensive minds in the league. Spent time in Detroit, spent time in Philadelphia, now in Cleveland this year. And it's weird because you would think San Francisco has been in their bag the past 5 weeks, putting up 32 plus points a game, putting up 42 against the Cowboys' number 1 ranked defense last week. You would think that this should be, I don't want to say a walk in the park, but you would think this would be a game where you look at Cleveland and you say, yeah, we should walk over them pretty easily. But thanks to Jack Hammer, Jack's a great guy, a great follow. Follow him on YouTube and Twitter. Does great work out there for I believe it's the Santa Rosa Press Democrat. Great work out there. Great person, by the way. A good friend, a kind person. Follow him on Twitter and stuff. And check out his work. But he put these stats out. Kyle Shanahan is 1-8 in the 9 meetings between a Shanahan offense and a Jim Schwartz defense. 1-8 in their 9 meetings. As the Falcons offensive coordinator in 2016, okay, when they had MVP Matt Ryan and They had a 28 to 3-point lead against the Patriots in the Super Bowl. That Falcons offense averaged 33.9 points a game, pretty much 34 points a game in their first 9 games of the season. Very similar to how much San Francisco is averaging through their first 5 weeks of the season. In game 10 of that year, then Eagles defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz, they faced off, and Philadelphia's defense held the Falcons 34 points a game offense to 15 points in that game. And it was the only time in that season that the Falcons didn't score at least 23 points. So, yes, on paper, yes, with the injuries that are coming out of Cleveland, with how well San Francisco is playing, the Browns may have one of the bigger X factors when it comes to coaching defense, that being Jim Schwartz, who by name you wouldn't expect, right? But by personnel, who he has, and now he's schemed up the Browns defense so far this year, and the history he has with Shanahan. This is going to be a tough game for San Francisco's offense. Now, San Francisco last week played the best defense in football coming into last week, and this week they get to do it all over again. Their second straight week playing the number 1 ranked defense per DVOA. The Browns are number 1 against the run and number 3 against the pass in the NFL. This is essentially the rock and a hard place for San Francisco. How do you squeak through the crack that has been the Browns defense? There's really no much room to maneuver. How do you manage to score against the number 1 run defense and number 3 pass defense in football, led by a defensive coordinator in Jim Schwartz that has had Kyle Shanahan's number in the past? Schwartz is going to use a ton of stunts with their defensive line personnel, loves to blitz, loves to use 5-man fronts, and loves to play cover 1 and cover 3. They're pretty similar to the Dallas Cowboys last week, and I know what you're going to say. Well, they put up 42 points. You're right, but the Browns, in my opinion, are a much better unit of a team than the Dallas Cowboys defense. And this Browns team loves to play cover 1 63% of the time. And you're going to see a lot of 5, 6, even 8-man fronts in the box. They are going to want to stop the run, aka stop Christian McCaffrey, who's averaging roughly around 5-6 yards a carry, although had his worst game against the Cowboys last week. It wasn't as if San Francisco actually needed him to score points in that game, with George Kittle scoring 3 and Kyle Juszczyk scoring 1 through the air. But this defense is really strong. Myles Garrett is one of the best, if not the best, edge rusher in football. And you pair him with Za'Darius Smith, someone who I said, if San Francisco was uncertain as to who Drake Jackson and Clelin Ferrell were going to be this year, go out and get Za'Darius Smith for nothing. The Browns swooped in, they acquired him, and this may be the best or one of the best edge rushing, pass rushing duos in football. San Francisco already faced one of these units week 1, and funny enough, the exact same division with Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt in Pittsburgh, and that game went San Francisco's favor, and really San Francisco's offensive line didn't play great in that game. TJ Watt had 3 sacks, Purdy fumbled once, but again, they put up 30 points. This Browns defense is better than that Pittsburgh defense, in my opinion. They're much better in the interior, at linebacker, and in the secondary. So you're having 2 premier edge rushers, Myles Garrett, who right now is the best pass rushing edge rusher in football, has the highest pass rush win rate. You've seen him during October, during Brocktober, right? If he sacks a quarterback on Halloween night, he is going to have a tombstone with Brock Purdy's name on it. Now, I don't care about sacks. I care about winning the game. So this offense can give up 9 sacks for all I care. As long as this ends up in a victory, that's all I care about. You can have your tombstone, Myles Garrett. Give me the win over the the facade of getting a sack on your lawn on Halloween night. But again, to give them respect, even Za'Darius Smith has a top 10 pass rush win rate. This is going to be a massive test for Colton McKivitz and Spencer Burford, who had a really good game against the Cowboys last week, who had Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence, only giving up 4 total pressures and 0 sacks. So they're playing their best football right now. But you have to wonder, this Niners offensive line has played extremely well since week number 1. Against the Cowboys, you expected maybe a worse performance. Didn't happen. Against this Browns team, I'm going to expect there to be some struggles in this game. Now, I like to think that with Shanahan and this offense and Brock Purdy's quick release and you having a handful of the best check down options in football, just like other teams like the Cowboys and like the Rams have tried to limit or prevent the pass rush of San Francisco, I wouldn't be surprised if, to avoid facing Myles Garrett or facing the pressure they might bring, you would do the exact same thing to the Browns. And we saw this Niners offense take Micah Parsons out of the game entirely last week against the Cowboys. We could see something similar, albeit I do think Garrett is a little better than Micah Parsons. But again, tough battle for them. One thing I will say is that many people, including myself, would say that whenever you have Myles Garrett against Colton McKivitz or Smith against McKivitz, there's going to be a massive advantage to the Browns. Myles Garrett lines up over 50%, 60% against left tackles. San Francisco has the best left tackle in football in Trent Williams. So I get there's fear when you see Myles Garrett and the best pass rush win rate grade in football and Za'Darius Smith, a top 10 pass rush win rate against McKivitz, you go, oh my God, boo, Brocktober Fest, Halloween, boo. The reality is Myles Garrett does not line up against right tackles very often. He's more so against left guards and left tackles, and San Francisco has, I could argue, the best left tackle and left guard unit in the league right now. I believe neither one of them have still allowed a sack all year long. So that's going to be a fun, just Goliath and Goliath battle with Garrett and Williams going head to head. Williams took out Parsons in their 8 plays against each other. I would expect this to be another, circle them every single play if they are lined up head to head, because my goodness, that could be fun to watch on film, on tape, and even on Sunday when you're just watching the game. But otherwise, a very big test for San Francisco's offensive line. And even then, the interior of Cleveland is really good. Dalvin Tomlinson, Jordan Elliott, Shelby Harris, Maurice Hurst, who was here the past 2 years and didn't play a single game or played one game. Those 4 men eat up the middle of the field. Aaron Banks is expected to play. But if he can't go for whatever reason, John Feliciano, who the stats might say did play well against the Dallas Cowboys, giving up 0 pressures. He only played 1 quarter against starters. So I think those stats are a little bit skewed because the Cleveland Browns this year are the number 2 team behind the San Francisco 49ers at limiting big plays. They have given up only 18 explosive plays. When I say they're good at every single level, when I tell you about them stacking the box, wanting to blitz, having the best interior or one of the best interiors in football, and having 2 premier edge rushers, this front 7 gets after it. They're not going to be a defense that takes away the football. They're going to be more of a defense that socks you in the mouth for 3 plays and forces you to punt. This team, again, has a -7 turnover differential. Again, they're not going to take the ball away from you. What they are going to do is they're going to punch you. They're going to kick you. They're going to make you broken and bruised and bleed for 4 quarters and hope they can get you in a slugfest and make you punt every single drive. They are a bend, don't break defense. This is, again, one of on paper right now, the best unit in football San Francisco gets to face. And when I tell you, Dalvin Tomlinson, a name maybe many of you don't even know, he is one of the best interior guys in football. He is going to give Brendel and Banks, even Burford on certain plays, a handful. And when you know that you have 3-4 guys on the interior that are great, like Hurst and Elliott and Tomlinson and Harris, it allows Jim Schwartz, who loves to use stunts, to get Myles Garrett out there doing freaking crossovers like it's basketball, or Za'Darius Smith on stunts and having him beat your left guards, your right guards, even your tackles. So this is a massive test when it comes to personnel, when it comes to just feats of strength, but also this is going to be a test of scheme. Shanahan against Schwartz, and through their 9 games, Schwartz has had the advantage. Now, I'm going to say this loud and clearly. I don't think San Francisco and Kyle Shanahan have ever had a team this well, dating back to 2016. I get Julio Jones, and that offense was great in Atlanta. I don't think it was this good as they've had in San Francisco, and it's not as if Kyle Shanahan couldn't come in here and just say, I don't care who Jim Schwartz is. And I would also think that Shanahan views this as a Dan Quinn kind of game. Now, they may not have the history like Quinn and Shanahan have, but Kyle Shanahan holds vendettas for years and years and years, especially against those coaches he's yet to win against or has a hard time beating. He's a head coach who likes to make he beats you and wants to put up 35 points against you. While, yes, the history might say the Browns, when it comes to Jim Schwartz's defense, had the historical advantage, I would not be surprised if San Francisco scores 35 points and Shanahan's out there looking at Schwartz, staring him down the entire game. Shanahan takes things very personal. He is someone who, again, if you beat him 9 times, that 10th time, the first time he actually beats you, he's going to make sure he beats you. So I can easily see that happening. But continuing on here, this is Brock Purdy's 2nd consecutive game against the number 1 defense in football. He's yet to fail ever. It's hard to put into words how good Brock Purdy's been. I try twice a week on the podcast and once on 95.7 The Game after games on Sundays, but it's hard to quantify, to put into words. I can read stats all day, and they can tell you he's number 1 and number 2 and this and that and the other, but Brock Purdy is a damn good quarterback. He is right now an MVP favorite when it comes to betting odds. He has put himself in a top 5, top 6, if not number 1 quarterback conversation as of this season alone. And when you beat the Dallas Cowboys by 42 points with a quarter to spare, it does give you the room to talk your talk. And I think Brock Purdy, the humble man he is going to prep extremely hard for this game. But I do think there is some areas, whereas the Browns defense being as good as they are, I do think there is some areas where the Niners offense can exploit them and maybe even put up 30 points a game again for the 6th straight week. So the Browns coming in, played man coverage 53.7% of their snaps, 54%. So over half of their snaps playing man coverage, and they allow an insanely low 6.4 QBR. 6.4 QBR. That's incredible. That shows you how good this defense is when it comes to playing man coverage. And while Brock Purdy has had a lot of success against man coverage this year, I do think it's extremely important, imperative that the Niners can get Christian McCaffrey going, utilize him in the play action, whether it's Mitchell, McCaffrey, Mason, Juszczyk, I don't care who it is. You must get one of those few guys going, at least make them respect those guys on the ground, because if you can get play action working and you can start utilizing play action, this Browns defense gives up 9.5 yards an attempt on play action, which ranks 25th in football. This is an opportunity for San Francisco's offense, led by Brock Purdy, CMC, Ayuk, Debo Kittle, and others, to truly exploit the Browns defense. The Browns' best offense they played against, I believe, has been the Tennessee Titans. And I like Tennessee. They're a team that is up and down, though. They're wishy-washy. One week is a good offense, next week is a bad offense. They struggle to find middle ground, and that is the best offense the Browns have faced all year long. So this is a chance, and this is, again, another time for a number one defense in football to place or to play the best offense in football and to kind of test themselves. This is San Francisco's second go round. They're having a chance to exploit and expose one of the best, if not the best, defense in football on paper. Get play action going. You can get almost 10 yards a pop against this Browns defense. And Brock Purdy so far in play action this year is averaging 10.6 yards an attempt, which ranks fifth. So the Browns give up 9.5 yards, pretty much 10 yards a pop. And Brock Purdy averages over 10 yards a pop on play action alone. If there's one area, that's the area right there to exploit this Browns defense. Also, we talked, and you know this better than I do probably, when it comes to a Shanahan-style scheme, yes, sidelines are open. Yes, there's screens and there's dump-offs, but we know Brock Purdy through 14 games now and 10 straight regular season wins has been the best quarterback in the intermediate routes. Where do the Browns struggle? Oh, in the intermediate. They're giving up 8.3 yards after the catch in between the numbers. Who do you think on this team is going to be utilized in between the numbers after the catch? Oh, Deebo Samuel, yes. Brandon Ayuk, yes. George Kittle, yes. Chris McCaffrey, yes. Should I name the entire offense when it comes to utilizing them over the middle and getting them space after the catch? It's going to be a game for Deebo and Kittle and CMC and Ayuk to continue to do what they do best and be the yak bros. This is a game for San Francisco where the Browns this year rank 31st in yards allowed after the catch, 5.81. Again, if the middle's open and you're giving up yak and you want to utilize play action, which seems like staples in the Shanahan Brock Purdy led offense, this is the defense to face. It almost feels like every defense this year has struggled over the middle, which should in return make us value Drake Greenlaw and Fred Warner so much more than we actually do. But San Francisco's offense, seemingly through 6 weeks so far, has had everything line up in their favor when it comes to our strengths against the opponent's weaknesses. This week is no different. Yes, the Browns have one of the best run defenses in football. Again, the best against the run. This could be a very Brock Purdy heavy scheme, schemed out day passing the football. But again, it's not as if it needs to be a stressful take shots downfield style of game. He can do that. He can certainly do that. 20 yards downfield, 40 yards downfield. Brock Purdy can show and has shown he can do stuff like that. But again, if you cannot tackle, if you're giving up yards after the catch, if you're not good in play action, you're almost leaning into what San Francisco likes to do best in feeding the intermediate routes and giving their stars like Deebo and Kittle and Ayuk time to fight for 5-10 yards downfield after actually making the 6-7 yard catch. But to give the Browns credit, I do not want to take them lightly. Already talked about how good their defensive coordinator is and how good their defensive line is. They have two strong linebackers, Anthony Walker and Jeremiah Owusu Karamoa, JOK for short. They've been great this year for the Browns. And Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome have also been phenomenal for the Browns being cornerbacks this year. This might be, and maybe had Trevon Diggs not been hurt, but he was against the Cowboys last week. Had he not been hurt, I wouldn't say this, but since he was hurt, this might be, with Ward and Newsome, the best cornerback combo Purdy's faced so far this year. Certainly wasn't the Rams. Certainly wasn't rookies out there with Giants or even the veteran cornerbacks in Pittsburgh. It may be Ward and Newsome this year right now. This is going to be a tough defensive-led battle, in my opinion. I do think there might be a chance, or if you are worried San Francisco comes out sluggish, even if they do, let's say, come out and they only score 10 points in the first quarter. One, that would be their lowest output the entire year. But also, two, this offense has yet to not score. They have scored on every single opening drive they've had the ball. They have, 5 games so far this year, being 5-0. But in their 5 games, they have scored on every single first drive they've had. And in 4 of those 5 drives, they put up touchdowns. They have scored 31 points, a league-leading 31 points on first drives this year. So I get there's concern and worry of a slow start for San Francisco, but it almost feels as if that might be their best chance to get the Browns, like the Cowboys, on their heels. This is a game where even if you put up 17 points, let's say the Browns defense plays just perfect football, bend don't break, but the Niners offense is too good and the Browns defense, or the Browns offense, is just too banged up and playing poorly to really want to make me give them a chance. Now, if there is any way the Browns win this game, Deshaun Watson has to play, for one. But two, this is going to be one of those games, if the Browns want a chance or even have a chance, it's a game where San Francisco gets sloppy, Brock Purdy throws a pick, or someone like Debo or Kittle fumble the football. We have seen San Francisco's teams before come out and just have that one really flat game. I'm not expecting that, but if there is going to be a chance for the Browns, it's going to be because San Francisco's offense plays sloppy and is giving the ball away, which I don't expect to happen. Brock Purdy this year is, I believe, 11 for 1 when it comes to touchdown to turnover differential, and has thrown no picks so far, knock on wood, this year. And it's not like Cleveland takes the ball away. So I don't want to sit here and say it's going to be a boat race or going to be all San Francisco. This game is going to be, it's going to be a slugfest. It's going to be 2 strong defenses wanting to assert their dominance. Now, thankfully for San Francisco, they have the offense to answer the number 1 defense in football. And again, if San Francisco's offense puts up 30 points against the number 1 defense in back-to-back weeks, I mean, what a joke that'll be. It'll almost be as if the Niners are untouchable and will only improve their stock when it comes to Brock Purdy's MVP ranking or the belief fans have in him. There are still some people who get to buy into them. I don't understand it. They are going to be in the dance when it comes to playoffs and likely have a top 4 spot locked up in the entire playoffs. But again, long season to go. When you hear players like George Kittle and Kyle Juszczyk and others talk about, they know they had to get off to a hot start this year to make things easier for them late in the year. They want that number 1 seed. And I said last week after the Cowboys game that every single team they face in their way is a stepping stone to that number 1 seed. This team wants to go undefeated. They want to go 17-0 in the regular season, and they want to finish 21-0 when it's all said and done. This team wants to win the freaking Pro Bowl. When it's all like, they don't want to play in it, but they want to win it still. They want to win every game they step foot on the field in, and this week seems like no different. Now, yes, they are coming up on a 3-game stretch of not having Nick Chubb, Watson, Joel Bitonio, and maybe even David Njoku this week against the Vikings. Next week, no Justin Jefferson, and even 2 weeks from now against the Bengals, 1 week prior to the bye week, maybe even no T. Higgins or a calf injury hindered Joe Burrow. So they are facing 3 straight weeks of potential injuries on their side. Want all those players to get healthy, mind you, but San Francisco cannot come out and take these teams lightly. I don't think they will. Their mindset seems to be kill, kill, kill. Or if you're a Metallica fan, seek and destroy. um, this feels like San Francisco almost just saying we don't care who's in our way, and there are areas where Shanahan's offense can exploit this Browns defense. And for as bad as the Browns offense has played, this could be a great game to improve their defensive stock once it's all said and done and that clock hits zero. So my prediction, didn't give one last week, gave it on the Instagram. I said 26-20 against the Cowboys last week. That obviously proven to be a low ball effort prediction when it came to the final score of that game being 42-10. I do want to give the Browns defense a little more credit here, knowing the history that Jim Schwartz and Shanahan have against each other. So I'll say 26-13. Niners win. I do think they continue to roll, and I do think they advance to 6-0 on the year. I believe coming back home against the Vikings. I could be wrong there. I know they play a home game one of the next 3 weeks, but week 6 in Cleveland's our focus. It's their focus. It's my focus. So who cares when it comes to against the Vikings and the Bengals in 2 weeks? But going to be a fun one. Early game, 10 o'clock start, 10 a.m. Pacific start, mind you. So rest up, get ready for another duke it out brawl of a game. And this is another Micah Parsons, Nick Bosa. Now it's Nick Bosa against Myles Garrett. This is another defensive edge elite face-off. It's another Myles Garrett and Trent Williams face-off. This is another elite defense superstar versus superstar matchup. And if Brock Purdy beats the number 2 defense in football for 2 weeks in a row, my goodness, that stock is going to go up, up, up. And we're going to start having a true serious MVP top 5 quarterback conversation, which has already started, but it's going to continue if it happens again. My prediction, 26-13, San Francisco wins. We're praying and hoping for 30. We're hoping to continue Brocktober Fest in the month of Brocktober. Let's advance to 3-0 this month and continue the Brocktober celebration all the way until the bye week, week number 9 of the season. We're 5-0 right now, looking at 6-0 if they can take care of business in Cleveland on Sunday. Don't forget to follow us on social media. At 49ers.access is the Instagram. 49ers_access is the Twitter. You can also use our promo code 49ersaccess, 49ERSACCESS at SeatGeek.com to save yourself $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek.com. Doesn't matter if it's football, baseball, basketball, concerts, Niner games, or others. Doesn't have to be at Levi Stadium. It can be anywhere in the entire country. Use that promo code and save yourself some money. It'll help pay for your parking, and you can support the show in the meantime. You can also use our Fanatics link up above or down below and buy some merch and support the show as well. But if that's too much, no big deal. If you like, share, and subscribe the video. Hope you loved this deep dive into Sunday, into all the stats and how the Niners can actually win on Sunday and what can give them fits when it comes to playing the Browns. Leave a like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, leave a review on the podcasting platforms, Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Anywhere you listen, leave a review. It helps the show. Give us 5 stars. Doesn't matter what you put in there. You can put in your game prediction. You can say this show stinks. Just give us 5 stars. It helps the show climb the rankings and climbs the ratings. That way we can build the faithful in this community. My name is Sterling Bennett, saying thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and thank you for sharing, and subscribing. Until next time, my name is Sterling Bennett, hoping for a 6-0 start, and stay faithful.